prepared to be triggered. If you are a liberal, you will write me off as a conservative. And if you are a conservative, you will write me off as a liberal. And I am neither. I'm a radical centrist. I sit in the middle. And things on the internet are heating up about immigration right now. And both sides are dug in. And they're dug in and they think they're right. And there is a lot more nuance that is not being looked at. And so I think I have a specific place to stand in this conversation. I have a son that came as an unaccompanied minor during the Trump administration, and I adopted him. And I have a husband who came just undocumented, walked across the border when he was 16 years old. So I have all of that in my community. And I recognize that we need to close the border. I recognize that a wall cannot be racist. I recognize that as long as we keep the border the way it is, we're supporting the cartels. And so when the liberals scream about how it is a humanitarian crisis, it is a humanitarian crisis. But the humanitarian crisis is that every one of those people that is crossing is paying the cartels to cross. So if you are paying the cartels to cross, our labor shortage is becoming a profit center, has been a profit center for the cartels for a lot of years. The humanitarian crisis is not just people needing a place to go, but it is the women being raped and the men just never showing up. Some 100,000 men a year or something don't show up, leave their country of origin and never make it here. That is a humanitarian crisis. 350 children missing is a humanitarian crisis. Republicans scream, come here legally, do it the right way, get in line. I tried to get my mother-in-law here for every one of my births. I have means, I have a lawyer, she has a house in Mexico, she has money in the bank. And if you are not wealthy and you are indigenous and you are in Mexico, there isn't even a way to come here as a visitor. That is not even possible, even with me petitioning so she could be here for the birth of our child. The truth is, both sides are just rearranging furniture and placing blame. But what needs to happen is the border needs to be secured. And then we need to create pathways that make sense. We need to prioritize Mexico over other countries because they are our closest neighbor. And it makes the most sense for the United States to have a positive work trade relationship with Mexico. If the average cost of a coyote right now is $10,000 to $12,000, then the USA should make a work permit that is $10,000 to $12,000 for 10 years. You come here, you wear an ankle bracelet, or you do a check-in every week. You have to stay gainfully employed. You have to pay payroll taxes, and then a percentage, maybe just $20 per a pay period, or into Social Security. Or maybe your employer pays the Social Security portion, and you don't pay anything because you'll never receive those Social Security benefits. And therefore, you can go home on the holidays and see your families. Yes, does deporting people separate families? Yes. But does having the gray laws that the Democrats want also have people be separate from their children for 24 years, for 30 years, never meet their grandchildren, haven't seen their child since they were 2 years old? Yes. Both systems keep families separate. Both sides are not trying to make a working system. They're trying to pit each other against the other one. People want to say liberals want people to wash their toilets. That is a simplification. I work in agriculture and I work in hospitality in California for most of my adult career. That is a simplification of the truth that we are short of labor and that we do need labor in this country. And we should prioritize Mexico to be that labor because they are our closest neighbor, and then go down that way. The pathways are not available the way they should be. H-2B visas and H-2A, whatever, the agriculture and the tourism visa for hospitality are both short-term visas, 9 months. By the time you get someone trained, you pay for their visa, it's time for them to go home. We need better systems. Trying to round everybody up and throw them out while we don't secure the border is like trying to bail out a boat that is still leaking. We need to secure the border. We need to deal with DACA, give them a permanent pathway to at least being here and having residency, permanent residency status or green card status. We need to create systems that work. Both sides are screaming, and there is so much nuance that is not being addressed. And we can't even hear each other anymore. If someone says undocumented, someone screams illegal. If someone says illegal, someone screams undocumented. Instead of screaming at each other about this, why don't we look at that there is a labor shortage? Why don't we look at that there is a humanitarian crisis? And why don't we look at that the border is secured, but secured by the cartels? And by having a border secured by the cartels, we are putting billions with a B into dangerous criminals' pockets. And we are all culpable. All of us who eat food, all of us who participate in so many industries that depend on this workforce. So we got to come together. And this is the kind of thing that is only going to work with bipartisan cooperation. So nobody's going to like everything. Trump, remember, offered in the first administration residency to DACA, but there was money that needed to be given for the wall. Democrats said no. We are going to have to make different kinds of compromises where we don't love everything about it. And I want to encourage us to have these conversations. I see so much fear-mongering happening on all these apps right now. And if you're sitting here fear-mongering about raids and telling people you feel so bad and crying about it, my question is, have you helped anybody get citizen status? Have you gone to the refugee resettlement and said you're available to be a parent or to adopt someone? Have you let families that are in transition and getting their papers stay with you? Because right now, a lot of people are screaming their bleeding hearts out, but are they really standing for people? And on the other side, if you're screaming about 350,000 children that are missing, and everybody should be screaming about that, what are you doing to create better sponsorship opportunities in your neighborhood or in your town? What are you doing to encourage people to go to the refugee resettlement place and say, I'm available to be a non-abusing household to take in children? How are we acting together as humans, as people, as children of God, and looking at this with all the nuance? There is more than just right, wrong, good, bad. And nobody's going to love all of the outcomes, but we have to be willing to talk and we have to be willing to compromise. I love my husband, and he came here as an undocumented person, as an illegal, however you want to say it. He walked here. He walked across a line that was not for him to walk across when he was 16 years old. And everything I have in my life, my children, and everything is because of that. But does that mean we should not secure the border? No, of course not. The reality is we have to make changes. What we've been doing is not working. And if you think that it was working and people being separated from their families in Mexico, Salvador, Guatemala for 24 years and never seeing their children and sending all their money back home was working, let me tell you, it's not working. And rounding everybody up and throwing them out, also probably not working. But we have to make compromise. We have to make choices for the future. We can't just keep kicking it down the road. Democrats have had both houses and so have Republicans, and no real change has been made. My request is that we come together and talk on this issue. I would like to have a roundtable discussion on YouTube or somewhere about this. And if anybody's interested in being in this conversation with me, please DM me. But I would like to have conversation with nuance and information from all different people, all different stakeholders in the conversation.